So again, this is Isis, and I'm only bringing to light the headdress. So understand that this is the symbol of the sun, or the sun disk, inside of the crescent moon. This will become clearer as we go along. Here's a statue of the Greek god Luna, and notice the crescent moon on her head, which ultimately transformed into the horns of the goat Mendes. And here we have the goat. Now, it's important to understand that these horns ultimately this picture is from Eliphas Levi, and it's from the 18th or the 19th century, so 1800s. So this is roughly 5,000 years after the representations of Isis that we just saw. So the crescent moons, which we see here on the sides, transformed into the horns of the goat. These are the same symbol. And here we see the representation of the sphere of the sun falling into or between the horns. And down here we see the caduceus of Hermes. So this is just a collage of symbols of the god Set, or Satan, or essentially what we're going to try to parallel as Saturn, or Kronos, and ultimately Lucifer. So here we have a very enigmatic symbol. This is Venus. Now the reason I bring this symbol up is because later on in this lecture, possibly not in this video, we're going to parallel Venus with Lucifer, which ultimately is Set. Now the goddess coming out of the seashell is a very obscure symbol. The seashell represents the sun. Now the only modern day version of the seashell representing the sun, quite frankly, is the gas station or the gas company Shell. So they bring the seashell up to the face, and it looks like a horizon of the sun, or the sun crossing the horizon. It's an alchemical symbol. It's a very occult and ancient symbol for the sun. The seashell is a symbol in magic and occult symbolism for the sunrise. And Venus is also the morning star, which Christ himself refers to, and also Lucifer is known as the morning star, and consequently Venus. And this is a very enigmatic mystery and formula, and ultimately that's what we're going to attempt to decipher in these next few videos. Now this is a tarot card, and the reason I bring this up is because ultimately the Death Tarot card is Kronos, or Saturn, or Father Time. Notice the sickle of Kronos. And in the depiction of this tarot card, I just want to bring attention to the crown, which crown, essentially, I think I have a slide later on, but essentially Kronos is where we get the word crown, because in the ancient Phoenician Canaanite system, or the Babylonian system, all the kings were coronated to Kronos. And I know these are Latin words, but they're ancient derivatives, ancient cognates. So Kronos and crown, or corona, is ultimately the same word. And that's why we have coronations. Basically, they're symbols of time and timekeeping, just like Kronos. Kronos is the Greek word for time. It's where we get the word chronometer or chronology. This is not very obscure. This is very basic Orthodox Greek. This is another tarot card, and we can see also the harvesting of, or the clearing of the old field and the harvest, so that for the next season, the sowing of the new seed, and the sickle and the crown and the king and the queen, and these are very enigmatic symbols. And this is Aleister Crowley's tarot card, which I have a clearer picture of. I'm not sure if it will be clear with this camera, but I'm going to try. But let me go through this anyway. Down here we have the symbols of Nun, which is the Hebrew letter for the fish, and the tarot card is Death. And here we have Scorpio, which is an M with an arrow. M is symbolic of the Latin word and essentially the Indo-European word for sea, which is mare, like maritime in English or marine. But essentially the word Mary comes from this cognate. So that's why we get fish and all these correspondences, because what Crowley was symbolizing here, and basically the tarot tradition, is, and Crowley goes as far as to put the symbol of the fish, which is symbolic of the age of the fish, or the age of Pisces, which we have just left, and supported or bolstered by just these Kabbalistic or Hebrew correspondences of Nun, which means fish, which is the Hebrew phonetic for the sound N, called Nun, which means fish, and death of that age, and again, the maritime symbol or the sea symbol of Mary. Now, if you look at the zodiacal symbol for Virgo, the Virgin, it's just the same symbol of an M with not necessarily an arrow, but just a little squiggly line. And if you look at that closer, it's a fish. It's a little bit of a symbol like a fish, like the Christians use. So it's Mary with the fish, or the mother and the son, or the Mary and the Christ, or the fish, because we know Christians know how symbolic Christ is of the fish. So these are Babylonian references, but displaced by Christian symbols. So these mysteries are not so obscure, and we're going to attempt to go through more of these in the next few videos, like I said, about Saturn exclusively. Now, this is a painting by an artist named Goya, and this just shows the depiction of Kronos eating his children. And just keep that in mind. We're going to get to this mythology a little bit later. Again, Kronos eating his children, and that's what this symbol is. And this, just a picture of Saturn, simply. Another one. Now, the object of these videos, or the purpose, is to somewhat show how Saturn, at some point in the prehistory of paganism, was regarded as the supreme god. And ultimately, I'm going to end this video so that I can begin the next one with just the basic talking point that the ancient Phoenician Canaanite word for God was El. And we get the Semitic version of Elohim, which becomes a suffix for all the angelic names. And this essentially probably was Saturn, or Set to the Egyptians.